Okay, I'm going to attempt to work on the calculator and show you some of the shortcuts on the calculator for mean and standard deviation. So let's say that we have five numbers, 55, 60, 48, 32, and 41. Okay, so we want to find the mean and the standard deviation of these. Well, normally what we do is for the mean, we add them up and divide by how many there are. So we would divide by 5. So in your calculator, what we'd do is we'd say 55 plus 60 plus 48 plus 32 plus 41. Hit the enter button to get a total. So 236. And then we would divide by 5. And so we get 47.2. Now this is the way we normally do mean, and we have to find the mean in order to get the sample standard deviation or the population standard deviation. So I'm going to show you how to check your work. You'll still want to show your work, but I can show you how to check your work using the calculator. So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to hit my second button, and you'll see the little second here in the top corner. And then see above this data, there's a stat, and I'm going to click it. Now, we're working with one variable statistics because each one only has one term per item. The two variable statistics is where we get into correlation and that type of thing. So I'm going to make sure that the one variable stats is underlined, and I'm going to hit enter. Now you'll notice that you have a stat and a degree here. The degree just means that that's the mode that it's in. The stat means that we're ready to enter some data. So in order to enter these 5 numbers, I'm going to hit data, and notice it comes up with an x1. That means these are my 5 different x's that I want to enter. So I'm going to enter 55, then I'm going to press the down key. Well, 55 only shows up once, so I'm going to press the down key again, and I get to my x2. Here's where I enter the second data point. Hit down, frequency of 1 for the 60, hit down again, 48. I'm going to continue, frequency of 1, then 32, frequency of 1, and 41, frequency of 1. I always hit enter just to make sure that all my data is entered in there. Once I have all my data points, and it doesn't matter how many data points you have, you can enter them all. We're going to hit the stat variable key that is right here below the arrow. So I'm going to hit stat variable. It'll say calculate for just a second. The n is how many numbers you entered. Well, I entered 5, and so that's 5. I'm going to scroll over. Remember, x bar is the sample mean. So the sample mean, which we had calculated over here, was 47.2. Same thing here. I'm going to scroll over again. S sub x actually means the sample standard deviation. This is after we've already taken the square root of all of the x minus mean squared, add them all up, divide by n minus 1 for the sample standard deviation. So that's 11.1. Now, if you do happen to have a population talking about, say, the grades of the entire class or something, if I scroll over again, that is the sigma sub x. That means the population standard deviation. The difference between these two is in the formula. Remember that the sample standard deviation, the sample variance, because I've got it squared, looks like this divided by n minus 1, where we take each data point, subtract the mean from it, square those, add them all up, and divide by 1. The population variance looks like this, but I divide by n, the total number. And in order to get my s, I take the square root of my variance. And same thing here, to get my population standard deviation, I take the square root of the variance. So these two items on your calculator are actually already after the square root has been taken. So this is actually a way to check your work. Now I'm going to scroll over and just show you what these other two deals mean. This is the sum of the x's. Notice if I add all 5 of them up, I get 236, which is right here. Now the next one is if I were to take 55 squared plus 60 squared plus 48 squared plus 32 squared plus 41 squared. That is what I would get right here. We don't really use that in very many of our formulas, but it is always nice to know, especially if you do see a formula that has x squared and we're going to add them up. So that is using the statistics key and the data and the stat variation key to find your mean and your sample or population standard deviation to double check yourself on your calculations. Now, if you need any help with this, please don't hesitate to send me a message or ask questions on the discussion board. So go ahead and go try some more with the sample mean and the sample standard deviation.